How do I now deal with urges when they come up? How has professional help in this area allowed me to just deal with an urge properly when they come up in the moment? So if you're new to this channel, I'm Joe. I was in a pornography addiction for about 17 years of my life. Actively, I was trying to quit for about 9 of those years. So we're talking around 2016 when I first discovered NoFap. A lot of us who discovered NoFap at that time understand the reality of how difficult it actually is to quit porn. So I tried everything under the sun, which we all normally do when we're trying to quit. Cold showers, exercise routines, journaling, meditation, seeking out services that allow that deeper work. See if anything in your past sort of triggers all of this behavior. Why does it keep you in the addiction? Long story short, as a lot of us find, none of that worked in order for me to stop and actually stay stopped with porn. And after having tried that NoFap arc, I then went on to participate in 2 other paid programs in order to try and stop the behavior and stay stopped, and they didn't work either. So lo and behold, you probably understand that I was feeling pretty hopeless by the end of all of that. This all changed in 2025 when I met Tom Molyneux and Mary Paulus, who taught me what is known as the Beyond Compulsion method. This method deals directly with what we know as addicted neural pathways, as it pertains to pornography, of course, and ever since then, I've never looked back. It's a completely different way of looking at the problem, a completely different way of addressing it, and I've never looked back since. And in BCA, hundreds of guys have now gone in to stop, and they've stayed stopped. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So the way I overcome urges after 2025 and beyond is what we know as Beyond Compulsion Methods 5-fact script. So literally, when an urge comes up, I literally have a sheet of paper that I take out, and as I'm feeling the urge in the moment, when I'm feeling the pull, the compulsive desire as we know it, that compulsive desire to want to engage in porn, I'm reading through the script line by line as this is happening, getting into a rational headspace, reading through the script, reading the lines one by one, and just processing the urge as I read these lines, as I read each line, going down each line one by one. So if you've been trying to quit porn for a long time now, it would probably seem that what I'm saying here is pretty insane, because what is a piece of paper going to do? What is reading lines on this sheet going to do for me? How's it going to get me out of that compulsive desire? But it works, and it's worked for many other guys. And I think one of the main things here is the understanding that you don't have to have this convoluted way of trying to stop pornography addiction, and more importantly, stay stopped. So what this script does, it is designed in a way to actually address thought patterns that come up in an urge line by line. So it acknowledges that you're desiring. It then goes through the mental blocks, the mental stages of an urge that we're all very familiar with, that feeling of deprivation, that feeling of self-doubt, that feeling of clarity of what you're going to get if you choose to engage and if you choose to embrace the discomfort of an urge and get to the other side of it. And so this script is built in a way to deal with all that mental turmoil, perhaps emotional turmoil in that moment. So you're able to facilitate the right choice in that moment. Now, since 2025, I've been on this method, and with the ultimate, successful result of stopping and staying stopped. I became an affiliate for BCA Beyond Compulsion Academy since then. And a common thing that is asked of me is that why don't you just upload the script online? Why don't you just get this out online so we can all have it? And I could do that. The issue here is that if I was to do that without actually getting and consulting the professional help that comes with understanding the script, learning the script, understanding the mental models in order to make porn not a big deal in your life anymore, to have that base knowledge as a foundation to then use the script upon that knowledge, then it's not going to be of much use. Probably be a difficult position for you to be in, because a lot of those fundamental mindset shifts that you want to have in place beforehand are just not there. The thing is, when I first entered the program and started getting coaching off Tom, he explained to me very clearly, he said that, look, you're in this program now, and you've learned all this NoFap stuff, and you've learned all this other stuff from other paid programs that you've been in. What he wanted me to get clear on in that moment was, listen, You're not ready to stop just yet. You're not ready to stop because of the mental models that you've learned before this point. I've been through it. You're going to go through the same thing. You're not ready to stop yet until you ascertain the proper mental models to sit upon, to then use the script and be successful with the method. Because once you've installed this new software, this new way of thinking, to then use the script on it, it's going to be so straightforward, because the script is just one tool that you can pull out at any point, at any time. You're not thinking of what I need to do in each moment, what I need to do in this situation, what I need to do in that situation. It's a very simple, deployable, straightforward method that can be used at any time for any situation. And it's reliable, and it's simple and repeatable, and it's built for porn addicts, essentially. And so this is why it's so strong. This is why it's able, and this is why that it's the method that's been able to cultivate so much success with myself and other guys. So this is the method that I use. And at this point, I can understand the sort of notion of a lot of questions are coming up in your head right now, thinking, well, why have I been looking in the wrong place to solve this problem? All these other guys say you need to work on other things. Why is it you're telling me that it's so simple and this is how it is? What I'll do real quickly is I'll put a link to a video that Tom posted pretty recently. Give that a watch. Give all of his videos a watch, quite frankly. But this video is going to sort of break down what we initially thought about porn, what we initially thought about porn addiction when we were trying to stop, and him breaking all that stuff down, installing that sort of new way of thinking about it. So give that a click, give it a watch, and then come back when you're ready. So the next thing I want to address here is an accurate way of paradigm shift versus the inaccurate way of paradigm shift. A lot of coaches and programs out in this space will sort of articulate how to stop this behavior ultimately by shifting your paradigm. And although in the previous section I covered that yes, installing the new mental software is a pretty critical step in order to overcome this behavior, stopping pornography addiction and staying stopped, there's a few caveats to this situation. So typically within the industry, we feel that we see a lot of advice pertaining to, okay, well, as a vector to stop porn addiction, we're going to go on a self-development journey. We're going to go on a journey where we're improving our health, our fitness, our finances, making our lives a lot more enjoyable to live, a lot more fulfilling to live, and using that as a way to stop porn addiction and stay stopped, because we've shifted our paradigm completely. And ultimately, the way the shift is described is that because you're living such a fulfilling life, you won't have that need to watch porn anymore, because you have such a fulfilling life and you have such a fulfilling life situation. And on the surface, this seems rational. It seems to make sense. Unfortunately, it isn't the way that addictive neural pathways work. It isn't actually congruent with the actual reality that when you're in an addiction, it is omnipresent. It doesn't go away simply just because circumstances change around you, unless of course you're kind of locked up in a solitary confinement whereby it was impossible for you to engage in your addiction. But still, you're going to be very deprived. You're still going to be craving it. You're still going to be there in crazy discomfort without actually dealing with those moments moment by moment. But yeah, a lot of us who have been through a paid program before have sort of subscribed to the model that as long as your change in life is drastic enough, is impactful enough in the right direction or the perceived right direction, then eventually we're going to get to a point where we feel that we don't need porn anymore, that we don't need to engage in porn anymore because our life is so fulfilling. Unfortunately, if you're not addressing the compulsive desire in the moment and actively rewiring the way you process urges, the way you think about urges, the way you deal with urges in those moments of craving, in those moments of intense urges, the feeling isn't going to go away. The way you think about urges and how you process urges and your ability to be in control at any moment, that paradigm shift isn't going to make any difference. The key here is to actually deal with the addictive mechanism directly, head on, dealing with those urges, addressing a different way of embracing that temporary discomfort we feel when we're knee deep in an urge. So that's a critical sort of mindset shift that I want us to take away today. So number 3, the next thing I wanted to address here is that what we've seen in recent years is this advice to note down the emotions, the feelings that you're feeling before an urge happens or while an urge is happening. Now again, this seems very intuitive, this seems very rational and reasonable to do, because you're thinking, well, if I can identify the emotion I'm having in an urge, therefore I can connect that to something, have an epiphany, and then I'm going to be able to sort of resolve how I see this urge, because I'm thinking, oh well, it must be because this emotion is triggering it. Let's try and resolve this emotion, and therefore it will all be good, right? The problem here is that when an urge occurs, there's no single one feeling that recurringly appears on every single urge. And there doesn't even need to be a reason for an urge. If you have addicted neural pathways, you've grown a dependency to a mind mood altering experience such as porn, and therefore subsequently shifted into a porn addiction. Therefore, it's not going to really matter what you're feeling in those moments of compulsive desire when the desire comes up. It's just going to be a situation where it could be any reason, but you're just feeling those intense urges, those intense cravings, and usually because we're using an ineffective strategy that defaults to willpower on some sort of level in the end, we end up engaging, and we're not even really focused on the emotions that we felt in those moments prior to the urge or during the urge. It is just the fact that we've relapsed now and we're feeling pretty garbage about it, and it's just exacerbating the negative consequences of engaging in porn in the first place. This was a critical shift that, I had to make. It's simply focusing on dealing with the discomfort when it comes up. It doesn't matter what reason it is, because focusing on the reason might get you into a thinking pattern of unanswerable questions, thinking, was it this? Was it that? Convoluting the situation even more is really not what you need. It isn't practical. It isn't a good solution in order to actually stop the behavior and stay stopped. It might be useful in terms of having self-awareness, discovering parts of yourself that you legitimately do want to rectify. However, when it comes to dealing with urges for porn and stopping and staying stopped, it isn't very practical to be taking note of this emotion, taking note of these feelings that we have before and during an urge. It's more the fact that how do we actually deal with them when they come up practically to stop and stay stopped. So number 4, something that I mentioned earlier about the nature of compulsive desire and dealing with the desire when it comes up correctly, dealing with the compulsive desire to watch porn when it comes up in a direct way. So there is this typical advice that we see whereby when an urge comes up, when compulsive desire to watch porn comes up, and as we all know, that desire is very compelling indeed. And when it comes up, we've been instructed before to switch to a different activity. So for example, go do 20 push-ups, go for a run, go and work on a passion project, take yourself out into a mechanism which enables you to cope with the urge when it comes up. Perhaps it's been described as, getting healthy dopamine in order to rewire your brain that way. And the issue with this is that, yes, even if you were to choose a different activity and that was to, for a time, have you in that state of urges, pushing through the urge and being able to sort of stay away from porn for that sort of time frame, that window of feeling an urge. And perhaps you do get to the other side of the urge and end up not engaging, which, yes, that is what you want to achieve. However, it's still an indirect way of addressing an urge, meaning that, let's say you felt the urge and then go outside, do 5 laps of a run around the block. Yes, it's true that you're not engaging, but while you are on that run, you're still dealing with those internal feelings of compulsive desire. All these thoughts, all these feelings are coming up while you're on that run. And essentially, none of them are being addressed. You're just simply willpowering with those emotions and those feelings and those cravings while you're on that run, but not addressing them directly. And what tends to happen is that, let's say we get back in, we're not feeling the urge anymore, but perhaps 1 hour later, 2 hours later, the exact same urge comes back, or perhaps even more intense. Well then, right, I've got to go out and have another run, or perhaps you switch to something else. But essentially, it's the same feelings, the same cravings that come up. And it doesn't matter what reason is behind these cravings and feelings or anything like that. It's just simply an urge. It's simply compulsive desire spinning up these addicted neural pathways, spinning up all this self-talk, this internal dialogue, and it doesn't matter what it's saying, it's simply trying to get you back into engaging in this behavior, trying to get you back into those feel-good feelings for whatever reason it can think of in order to just try and get you to engage. The number one goal of the addictive part of the mind is to simply get you to engage in your behavior. And so what I'm saying here is that if you're using replacement behaviors just to replace the feeling, just to distract yourself from feelings of an urge in that moment, it isn't sustainable. You're going to feel the urges when they come up again and again and again, as they would do when you have addicted neural pathways, when you're in a state of experiencing compulsive desires in a compulsive behavior over and over again. You want to deal with the urges directly when they come up, address them when they come up, and put yourself in a position of strength and power through the mental models, through repetition of the script as we do in BCA, putting yourself in that position to come from a place of choice, a place of strength and a place of power to make the right choice, not needing to rely on ultimately willpower once we've sort of gone through the replacement behavior, once we've gone through the lap around the block or working on the passion project. We want something reliable that we can rely on and get onto the other side of the urge in the best way possible. Number 5, just to sort of come from that point that we just mentioned, yes, goal here is to get your mental headspace into a position where you have choice, have power, have strength in the moment to make the right choice. You're not worried about what to do. You're not worried about thinking, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? You're prepared. You're prepared at any moment to deal with the urge when it comes up. That is the position that we want to get in. We want to have a position of reliability, a position of strength, a position of staying solid in whatever urge comes our way, knowing exactly what to do, following a repeatable process, a simple process in order to get onto the other side of the urge, to stop and ultimately stay stopped. Now, a lot of you guys watching have been dealing with this problem for a while, and if you've been watching this content now, you probably heard a bit of a different paradigm of how this problem can be solved and how urges can be dealt with. And I've been there before. I know how important it is for you guys to solve this. In the description below, there's a 15-minute WhatsApp call link that you can click on. Bring questions to me, bring hard questions to me. If you decide to get on the call, really drill down any questions that you feel that you need to ask me in order for you to get yourself in the headspace to really understand this problem, really understand what kind of roadmap needs to be mapped out in order to get you to the position you want, to stop and stay stopped. And ultimately, we'll have a back and forth and see if BCA is a right fit for you.